Good evening and welcome. You're watching Thursday Night Live from Uptown Bills. We do this every Thursday night, and we start at 7 o'clock. If you're watching us on television on Thursday night, it's live. And if you checked your channel, it's channel 18. If you're watching us at some other time, it's taped. But if you're watching us live, you're welcome to come down and see us. We're on Dubuque Street near Lafayette, between the two sets of tracks, so come down and join us. All right. Bob is next. Would you like a stand? I notice you've got some. Okay. Let's see where it went. Oh, here.
Oh, actually, no, just the mic.
Just the mic will be all right? All right.
Yeah.
Now, at some point, I probably will have to interrupt you and say goodbye to our TV audience,
Okay.
which is exactly at 8 o'clock.
All right.
But I'll just creep up behind you, and then you can go on
Yeah,
after that.
maybe time it. We'll see.
This clock, the clock in front of us there is a little bit fast, so I have a little one that we use that's in concert with the booth downstairs.
Good enough. Hello.
Hi.
This is my premiere read in Iowa City. I'm actually from Missouri, from Jefferson City, Missouri. I've been taking poetry classes at Lincoln University. They have a really good writing program there. Nothing like your writing program here, but they're moving along. Anyway, most of these poems have been workshopped and kind of give you sort of a broad idea of what some of the things I've been doing. One of the things I've been experimenting with different voices, not necessarily my own. A year or so ago, I read an article about the Neanderthal DNA, which had been finally cracked, and they found there was a lot of interspecies communication between Cro-Magnon, which is us, and the Neanderthals. So I wrote a poem about that, about a first interspecies communication. It's entitled Her First Cro-Magnon. I never forgot the day I first saw him. Sinew and muscle stretched thin over bone like the rabbit's shank, and a long shank it was. Black against the squinting sky, he was looking down into me. A curved stick in his hand, he moved like a deer, leaping along the rocks, stalking the trees along Snow Bear Lake. I ran back to tell my kin. I tried to show them how he leapt, but I couldn't. Later, they came upon us. They were as beautiful as their weapons, except their eyes, cold and mad, not like any animals we had seen. All this was many suns ago, many hunts and many deaths. Yet I remember that day I first saw him, dark and thin, stretched against the rising sun. This is kind of the next one's sort of a political poem dealing with the after effects of the Vietnam War. It's called Her Name Means Apricot Blossom. Hong Han stops to rest on the road to Ho Chi Minh City. Through the heavy afternoon air, she carries her son, a legless, armless trunk of a boy, in an improvised backpack. The war is nearly forgotten now. What is its memory next to tired feet and choking dust? The weight of her beloved burden, robed monks pass in silence. Into a bowl she drops one of her last 2 coins. The gods are now as remote from her as the men who first mixed the poisons, who killed the crops, made the animals sick, birthed all the misshapen children. Slowly she rises to complaining joints. If she makes it to her cousins before nightfall, there will be rice and a place to sleep. Lately I've been using dreams as I would say a prompt or a goad for some of my poems. This is one that was based on a dream I had about a year ago. It's called Parthenogenesis. This morning, when the daylight saving sun caught my surprised clock face, I woke from a dream of God. It was all the more interesting since I don't believe in him. I had found a frozen altar boy beneath the snow. He was so frosty white I was afraid his ears would chip like a Dresden doll. As I bent over him, I began to feel a warmth I called God begin to spread within my chest. It radiated like a heat lamp and thawed him. He got up and ran, the brocade fringe of his communion gown flapping around black polished shoes. His white form grew smaller and smaller as he ran down the early autumn sidewalk, littered with the discarded gloves of old working men. I remember worrying, still in the dream, if this might constitute an acceptable proof of God. I believe in dreams. I still do not believe in God. In another one, I walked the dusty Athenian street with Socrates past the new Parthenon. He spoke perfect English and limped. If I were a beautiful young woman, would you make love to me? Hell, I said, I'd even take you on right now. He was trying to scratch something in the gray dust with a walking stick more crusty and bent than he was. The triangle he drew was just as true in dreamy Athens as it is in wide-awake America. Can I say the same of God? Traditionally, I like to write a poem every Halloween, every celebration of the Day of the Dead. It's a traditional thing for writers to write satirical, sometimes humorous, sometimes scatological poems. They're called calavera, which in Spanish is skull. Anyway, this is one I wrote last year. I'm still working on the one for this year. Calavera. On this day, I see with x-ray eyes skeletons everywhere. Today, all the bakers bake only dead bread. Candy makers mold sugar skulls to crack the teeth of young skeletons, and rum feeds the graves. Two skulls on TV are having at each other, their teeth clattering in time to each other, sounding like dueling Spanish castanets. Those two drunk skeletons fighting down the alley with only tooth and nail, fang and claw. There's not even any blood to show for all their trouble. Such a waste of booze and bone. Two police skeletons in that police car. The one in back is their passenger. His skull is as broken as a dry, cracked pot. All three are grinning. At the flip of a switch, 13 little gumball skulls atop the car suddenly scream out a piercing rainbow of color, striking terror, chilling the bones of passing motorists. Watch out. A lady skeleton is doing a striptease on a bar. Her clothes are thrown here and there. There's not much to see, yet she does her best with a little red smeared across broken teeth, and mascara stuck above where her eyes would be. A Brillo pad merkin on a thread dangles within her pelvic girdle. A dozen or so man skeletons appreciate her efforts. Their young bones stiffen in enthusiastic applause. The rattle of phalanges sounds like the snap and crackle of dried twigs catching fire. Two lost knuckle bones roll across the floor. Snake eyes. Pity they could not have seen her shake those abundant breasts, luscious sacks of fat and blood that once so proudly adorned her cage. For the next poem, I'm going to need some water. I'm talking too much today.
Need my moment to stand up.
Sure.
Bob will be back in a moment, but we have to say goodbye to our audience, our TV audience for tonight. We broadcast this show every Thursday night from 7 to 8, and if you are not here next week, you can watch it on the local community channel 18. It's produced by PATV, which conveniently enough is downstairs from us. We use 3 cameras that are set up in the room here, and we do other things too. There's another show by another Tom, which is on Tuesday nights, called Tom's Guitar Show. and that also is broadcast live. We did that actually just this week. We only do that one once a month, but it's a lot of fun. It sort of changes the dynamics a little, because again, we have to step in front of Bob and say, hey, good night to the folks in TV land, and we'll see you again next week.